Hey guys, how's it going? So 3 new Michigan gun control laws have been signed by the governor. We've covered these bills on this channel as they were promulgating through the lame duck session of the Michigan legislature before the Democrats lost their power in the Michigan House. But these are now a law, and we're going to get into these here. We're talking about the substitute for Michigan House Bill 5450. This is to indoctrinate your children and to get the government involved via your children on how you're storing firearms within the home. We'll read it in a second, but it's pretty creepy. Also, House Bills number 6144 and House Bill 6145. Again, these are now law. They were just signed by the governor, and that has to do with the mandatory destruction of firearms and all of their parts from these so-called gun buybacks. Now, before we get into this, 2 things. First of all, I've been out plowing snow and salting. It seems like almost every day for the past 2 weeks. That's what I do for a living. In fact, I just got done doing one of my accounts. I'm taking a break from plowing snow to do this video. Then I'm going to be back in the truck all night. And you notice there's no sponsors of this channel, no corporate ad reads. So if you guys would like to help support the channel, help take care of the time that I'm spending here, where I literally take time off work to bring you all this crucial information, there's ways you can support the channel down there in the description. Also, if you're new here, welcome. And if you're a regular, good to have you again. Make sure you're subscribed, have notifications turned on, because I'm going to go over these bills, in other words, that are now law. This is now law in Michigan, okay? But the way these passed and were signed by the governor, in my opinion, are spurious at best, if not even maybe worse than that. There's this whole thing. I've been investigating it for, gosh, about almost a month now. It's going to be a part 2. I'm going to have it up in the next day or 2, so stay tuned. And yeah, let's just get into these bills so this video isn't too long. But there's a whole nother thing where I'm going to do a deep dive talking about how stuff ain't adding up. And again, this is in my opinion. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not sure that this was done in the proper way. In fact, I suspect that it wasn't. Now, all gun control laws are unconstitutional, period. End of story. We shouldn't even have to be talking about this. But even within the unconstitutional framework that we live under nowadays, there's still something ain't right. So we're going to get into these. Stick around for a follow-up video soon. So I did a previous video talking about how these passed the House. These passed the Senate. We would have had a whole lot more, except for all of the Republicans. And one Democrat named Karen Whitsett walked out at the end of the session, preventing dozens of more bills, gun control bills, from going through. These did make it through before that. So this is what we have. This originally was called Substitute for House Bill number 5450. It has now been assigned as Public Act 25724. Public Act is another way of saying statute or law in the state of Michigan. Now listen to this. It's brief, so I'm just going to read it to you. It starts off with your classic, and let this sink in. The people of the state of Michigan enact Section 1313A1 by not later than July 1st, 2025. The Department of Health and Human Services, the health department's now involved, as well as the schools, in gun control, shall develop and provide to the department an informational notice in English, Spanish, and Arabic containing information and best practices regarding the storage of firearms. This notice must include at least, which means it could include much more than that, and the sky's actually the limit. This notice must include at least all of the following. A, an overview of the requirements under Section 9 of 1927, Public Act 372, MCL 28.429. That was the stuff that went into effect last year, right? That's the so-called safe storage laws. I say safe in air quotes, making it safer for the criminal, and definitely infringement on your right to keep and bear arms, and how you manage the affairs from within your home. So, an overview of the requirements of the so-called Safe Storage Act, big air quotes for those of you listening, and B, answers to frequently asked questions about firearm storage requirements. C, guidance on where a parent or legal guardian can obtain gun locks and gun safes. including free or low-cost options. Section 2, the department shall share the informational notice developed under subsection 1 with all public and non-public schools. So you're talking your private schools, your Christian schools. I believe this would also reach into your charter schools, also home schools. So even if you took your kid out of the government indoctrination system with the public schools, this says all public and non-public schools. So this is wide, this is pervasive, and unconstitutional, in my opinion, on many levels. Beginning July 1st, 2026, the Department of Health and Human Services shall update annually, so this is ongoing. Yeah, there's nothing, it's always just ongoing. It's never enough. Shall update annually the informational notice developed under subsection 1 to account for any change in law. The updated notice must be provided annually to the department by not later than July 1st. This is in my opinion, and we'll see what's going to be included in this notice, that they shall send to all public and non-public schools. Keep that in mind. This is to try to wrap up all of your children and getting educational information that's going to tell them, in the opinion of the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, how the firearms should be stored within the home, according to this previous law that passed. And let's call a spade to teach your kids that, hey, look, the way daddy's storing his guns isn't quite good. Now combine that with, now they're not only wanting to make children, in my opinion, afraid of firearms and not like firearms, which people that are afraid of firearms and don't like them are usually anti-Second Amendment. See, they're trying to indoctrinate your children for this generation, the next generation. I mean, they've been working on trying to make this a communist country for over 100 years. I'm just being honest about it. I hate it and it sucks, but this has been a long, slow burn, and they're still perpetuating it right now. But there's also that tip hotline that was set up last year, where now there's going to be a phone number funded by your tax dollars. Keep in mind, these people work for you, and you pay for these gun control laws, and you pay for the jackboot of a tyrannical government on your neck. Just think about that for a minute here, how terrible that is. But there's a tip hotline where children and other children, not just necessarily your children, but can rat out parents, adults on ways that they're storing firearms within the home. That was already been passed. Now this, which is now law, is going to provide the children the information within the schools, in my opinion, to try to make them do just that. Let me know in the comments what you think about this. And again, we're going to do a follow-up video soon that's a deep dive on how these literally got to the governor and something's rotten in Denmark. This video, I don't want it to be an hour long. Just stay tuned. I've been working on this for weeks, pretty much a month here. All right, the next two are kind of tied together for the same subject matter, but for legal purposes, they're two different laws now. The first one used to be House Bill 6144. It has now been assigned as Public Act 26574. The companion bill, if you will, was substitute for House Bill 6145. Yeah, substitute, sent back and forth. This stuff's, it's a rocky road. We'll save that for the next video. And House Bill number 6145 has been assigned Public Act 26624. Okay. Yep, it's small font and it's kind of gray here, and I've been out plowing too long. But that's, so both of these combined are going to take it where when they have one of these so-called gun buybacks. Now, I reject the notion of a gun buyback, because how can they buy something back that they never owned to begin with? For example, did any of you buy your firearm from the state of Michigan? I mean, maybe a couple of you did at like a police auction or something like that. But for the most part, no. And I don't recall ever buying any firearms from the government. So how can they buy something back that they never owned to begin with? You tell me how that works. But they love this phrase gun buyback, and here we are. Now, it used to be in the state of Michigan where if guns were purchased through a buyback or seized or things like that from the police, that after a certain amount of time, the police department could sell those to the public at auction, going through FFLs, transferring the people who lawfully can own a firearm, all of that, yada yada. Look, to me, now this is controversial, so if you guys like this channel, make sure you hit the thumbs up and subscribe. Some of my viewers get mad at me when I say this, but I don't care, because this is how I believe. The lawful gun owner. You always hear about that. No. The law of the land is the Second Amendment, and it says shall not be infringed. So the way I look at it, and the way I read the Founding Fathers documents, if you're not currently incarcerated in prison, like right now, because you can be deprived of your property through due process of law. So if you're in prison through due process of law, assuming that the justice system does its job, which it often doesn't, but humor me, then yeah, of course you can have your firearms taken away while you're in prison. But I think everybody who's not locked up has the right to keep and bear arms. Literally. Because if you're too dangerous to have a firearm, you should be too dangerous to be among us. Why are you among us if you're that dangerous? I mean, people are killed with hands and feet. And Cain killed Abel with a rock, with a stone. So this is how I look at the Second Amendment. But yet here we are. They would sell them to you if you were a lawful gun owner and all of that. Or they could sell parts of it or transfer them to other police departments. Not anymore. Now all of these gun buyback guns have to be destroyed. Now, here's how these bills look, just so you know. We have plain text, and then the stuff that was added to it's in bold. I'm going to read because it is brief. It starts with your classic. The people of the state of Michigan enact. Section 5A, 1, beginning on the effective date of the amendatory act that added this section. The department shall dispose of all firearms that are purchased by a municipality under a gun buyback program and turned over to the department. 2. The department shall dispose of all firearms described under subsection 1 by destroying the firearms. The department shall ensure that all parts of the firearms disposed under subsection 1 are destroyed. The department shall not resell any firearms described under subsection 1. 3. As used in this section, quote, firearm means any weapon that is designed to, or may be readily converted to expel a projectile by action of an explosive. Stay tuned to the follow-up. The way this went down, in my opinion, at the very least ain't quite right. If not, probably unconstitutional, period. That notwithstanding, like I said, all gun control is unconstitutional. But even with that said, something ain't right here. Now, the substitute for House Bill 6145, the people of the state of Michigan enact. There used to be provisions in the law where they could sell, see, all of this, by individuals authorized by law to possess these firearms. I kind of covered that earlier. They struck out all that, meaning that's gone now. And now it just simply says, the director shall ensure that all parts of a firearm disposed under this section are destroyed. And then they did the little woke stuff where it used to say he or she. Now it just says the owner. Because these people say there's no difference between a man and a woman, and they don't know, so there's no genders. And you know how woke these people are. It's just a little side thing. They do this for all of it. Like right up here, it used to say his or her, see? And now it just says the director's intent. It's just more woke stuff that they're adding on to these unconstitutional firearms restrictions. And in this case, with them destroying these firearms, okay, so these firearms, somebody was stupid enough to sell it back. Nothing I would recommend doing. I don't want to do business with the government in firearms. Nothing. I don't want to have to get permits. I believe it's all unconstitutional. But this has been a source for people for many years where you could potentially go to an auction or a sale they're having and buy a cheap firearm. And I know people who have done that, who might not have enough money to buy a new gun. And maybe they did buy themselves a little Lorison or High Point for $50 from a police sale. I believe by them making it where it all has to be destroyed is an infringement on the right to keep and bear arms, because it gets rid of an outlet for potentially, and it usually did end up working that way, where these police sales or auctions would sell cheap firearms to people who need to protect themselves just as much as wealthy people, and now those are going to be out of the supply chain. And as they like to say, they need to get them off the streets. There's too many guns on the streets. Now, I will say this before I conclude. Some of my viewers have said, no, this is actually good because now this is a defund the police movement, because some of my viewers, you know, aren't too keen on the police and want to defund the police. So it probably does defund the police because now somebody has to pay. Potentially the department's paying to, well, it appears on its face the department's now paying to dispose and destroy these firearms, right? And they're also now going to lack the revenue of potentially selling them. So look, if you're into defund the police, if you're on the F the police side of the thing, which, look, you guys let me know in the comments where you're at with that, all right? That's a whole other topic for another day. You might look at this as a good thing. But if you support the police and you don't want to defund the police, well, then this is yet another bad thing you might look at this as, right? Because it's going to, well, by definition, this is removing potential funds from the police, and it is putting more of a burden on them having to pay to destroy these firearms. But either way, whether you think that's good or bad, and I do appreciate lively discussion in the comments, let me know what you think about all of that. I have my thoughts. I just want to leave both sides out there and kind of stay neutral just in this video, just because I'm eager to see where you guys are at with this topic. But here's the thing, though. If it costs the police more money to dispose of these, all of this stuff ends up being taxpayer funded in the end. So I think it's going to come back to on the backs of the hardworking people in Michigan who are out plowing snow all night or whatever it is that you do for a living. It all trickles down to us, and I think we're going to pay for all this at the end of the day anyways. But I just wanted to throw that out there because, as I'm saying, this is a terrible thing. And that is my stance. I am not happy that these two House bills with the mandatory destruction of these buyback firearms, I'm not happy that this is law. I've already made the case why I think that this is a bad thing. But I did have, surprisingly, a large number of viewers say, no, to AEDU, you don't get it. This is a good thing because it's defunding the police. And yeah, like I said, just chime in. Let me know what you think. I'm going to deep dive this soon. I've already deep dived it. I've spent a lot of time behind the scenes, guys, and that's why I really appreciate all of the ways you guys have helped support the channel, whether it's through Patreon, locals, YouTube channel members. Some of you leave a super thanks, it's called at the end. Super chats. Cash App, that's in the description as well. I've spent a lot of time both in Lansing and on the phone and on my computer. So if you want to see me uncover something that appears to be, let's just say, not quite right, because I'm trying to be very polite tonight, then stay tuned for the video that's going to be coming out. I guess it's late Thursday night now, so this weekend. All right, 3 more Michigan gun control bills are now law. Public Act. And hopefully that's all we see from the lame duck from last year, and hopefully things are going to get a lot better going forward. We have to stay vigilant and keep an eye on these Republicans always. And trust me, I am. I've already been to Lansing in this new session. I'm going up again in a couple days. But hopefully things are going to be a lot less worse. And I'm really trying to be optimistic. These Republicans in the House can start turning stuff around. And I'm going to be up there encouraging them to do just that. All right. Thanks for watching. And have a good one.